Ugh, I don't like
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. JJ.
Housekeeping.
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 Housekeeping. Okay, Gabe.
Housekeeping.
Can we tell Gabe a story really quick? We were at Disneyland, and we were in a hotel, and then Vinny got locked out, and then he comes in, and then he goes...
You like knocked the door,
Knocked the door,
housekeeping.
housekeeping. And here's the clincher. Here's the punchline here. The next day, we get a knock on the door, and Vinny's in the room, and we literally hear the same exact housekeeping. Housekeeping. We're like, holy shit.
Where are you?
Yeah.
Right here, guys.
He's like, he's still in
Who's
bed.
out there? I don't know. Go to sleep.
Housekeeping lady. Okay.
Okay, I think that's a good test.
All right.
This is the Vince Salerno Podcast, episode 27. On today's episode, we're discussing and reviewing the new musical, The Prince of Egypt. We had some major concerns walking out of it. Specifically, is it possible to take God out of a biblical story? Apparently it is. And I'm joined by JJ Schindler, Shelby Turner, and Gabe Moore to discuss the musical. So sit back and relax because the Vince Salerno Podcast starts right now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Vince Salerno Podcast, episode 27 on this Monday, November 5th, 2017. I'm your host, Vince Salerno, and today we're doing something a little different. Today, we're doing a musical episode! Hit it!
I can't sing.
Okay,
You have to pay me extra to hear me sing.
that was a joke. Okay, we're not doing a musical episode. We might not. No, today. So normally,
Technically, musical episode, but no singing.
technically,
We'll explain
yes.
why.
We'll explain why. Yeah. So normally, what I do with these podcasts is I'll do the top 5. Then if I want to review something, I'll bring on a special guest and I'll review it. Like I reviewed Guardians of the Galaxy with Carly Tweehouse, and that ended up taking like an hour and 15-20 minutes. So I figured nowadays I just won't do the top 5 and I'll just fully review whatever it is I'm reviewing. So no top 5 today. I know there's a lot going on in the world of movie news, including a lot of the sexual harassment allegations, sexual abuse, Disney buying 20th Century Fox.
What?
Oh my god!
All these crazy things are happening, and I
wanna
promise
talk
you
about
guys I'll do Stop it right now. And I promise you guys I will do a episode covering all those things. I'll catch up because I've been away for a while. But today we're talking about a very, very important thing for all of us, and for fans of animation, for fans of musicals, fans of Broadway. We're talking about the Prince of Egypt musical because we had the unfortunate opportunity to go see this play before it potentially reaches Broadway, which is an incredible honor if you think about it. Just the fact that you get to see a play before it reaches Broadway.
We were like the first wave.
The first wave, exactly. So that itself is
the next wave is Denmark.
Oh boy.
Yes. Yes.
Denmark.
So
buckle up.
In case you haven't
What's
won.
the theater?
It was the Theater Works in Mountain View.
Yeah.
So in the Bay Area.
So for those of you guys who don't know, I have 3 special guests with me, more than I've had ever. Most of them have been on the podcast at least once. So from left to right, I have with me Shelby Turner.
Hi guys, what's up?
I have JJ Schindler.
Hello.
Yeah, that was JJ. And Gabe Moore.
Hey, good. Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming back. Gabe's second time.
Yeah.
My second time?
Third time.
Third time.
My
Sorry,
fourth
Gabe.
time.
She's got me beat.
JJ's 4th time.
Aw, dang, JJ.
So after today...
I'm still the freshest out of all of them.
Yeah, exactly. JJ's kind of spoiled goods at this point.
Spoiled goods.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right.
The only thing
So,
that's fresh to your program.
So in order to continue to have words. I'm going to turn it over to JJ because he's the one that kind of got us all tangled up in this gobbledygook of a mess.
You to blame.
Yeah.
So, JJ, why don't you explain how you heard about this musical? I mean, obviously we all know how we heard about this musical. It was a big deal when it was announced, but how did you know where it was being shown, and how did you get us involved? Just tell us about, like, getting started with this whole process of seeing The Prince of Egypt?
Well, I saw a post early on. I know one of the people who works on the musical, and that's where I saw that we had tickets to the Theater Works Playhouse. There was tickets available, and I had previously gone and seen another show done kind of in the same way, which was The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is an adaptation of the Disney movie, but using the book. And that was trying to go to Broadway as well. Unfortunately, that didn't make it to Broadway. But so that was kind of the same thing. And I thought, hey, let's have some friends go along and we'll go see Prince of Egypt. It's one of, it's such a classic. It was, a childhood favorite when I was growing up. Loved that movie. It was one of my biggest inspirations to get into filmmaking. So I just thought, hey, it would be a great opportunity to go see this play. And I had really high expectations for it. I wanted it to succeed. And going in there, we kind of got a totally different look than what we were expecting.
Yeah.
So I guess in this podcast, we really wanted to touch on that to kind of give a fuller view from our perspective of the play. I've done a lot of professional theater before. A lot of us have been in theater. So at least know a general aspect of how plays are constructed, the proper ways that a play should function, and what it delivers to as an audience member. So really just giving a full review from an audience perspective onto the play.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of going off of that, we're going to be comparing this kind of to what the original story that it was based off of, which is obviously the animated film 1998, Prince of Egypt, which was an extreme hit for DreamWorks Animation.
Their first, I believe.
Yeah, their first big hit, and for a long time, gave Disney a run, which is really rare.
That's quite the feat in itself.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're going to be doing for this review. So to start off,
because I had a different idea of where you wanted to start off.
Okay.
So I think what we should do is I just want us all to briefly touch on the movie and our thoughts on the movie. Like, if you have a fond memory of the movie, or just what it kind of means to you. So let's start going down the line. Let's just start with Shelby.
Okay. Well, I'll have to say...
And make it brief.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just pick one part, because there's so many good parts that I'll just say this really quick. We've all come from different backgrounds, different states, completely different ways we were raised. I mean, we're all Christian, we're all Catholic, but, there's many different factors involved. Cultural aspects, as, we all came from different playing fields in this respect. So I feel like it's a pretty unbiased kind of review that we're all feel the same way about this beloved movie. So basically,
most definitely,
we've all come in contact with this movie. We all had it as VHS when we were kids. This is just something that we've always loved, this animated film. And so there's so many great things about the movie that I had loved as a kid and even till now. But one of my all-time favorite parts was the burning bush scene with Moses, and his interaction with the burning bush, which is God telling him, his mission and goal in life, and what God wants him to do for him. And I don't know, that was just the way that they constructed that scene and made it so powerful and beautiful, and it wasn't scary. It was mystical, but in a beautiful spiritual kind of way for anybody, even who, if they weren't Christian or whatever, anybody who watched this story could get a glimpse of a visual of the story that is in the Bible. And I think they did it in a beautiful way. And so there's just a lot of things that I really enjoyed about the film, but that's one of my most favorite memories or moments that I, can draw back to about when I was a kid, what stuck out to me. That was definitely a scene that made me realize, have a connection with God in a different way that I was as a kid. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, and I felt I'm sure we'll get into it later, but I feel like the play did not properly execute that. But that's all right. So that was one of my favorite things about the movie.
JJ? Yeah, the animated film was such an inspirational part of my childhood, and really was one of the first things that drove me to the art of filmmaking and animation. Um, it's such an epic for an animation. Very few of those exist, and just the unique way that it was able to incorporate such a religious story into an art that was able to hit such a wide audience. And I think it did a really great justice not only to the story of Exodus, but also in a way that everybody could be captivated with the story. And that's why it was so successful. And they did a lot of work on reaching reaching many religious communities. They went and talked to a lot of religious communities in order to kind of develop the story. And it was just really impactful for me in my faith as a Catholic, as well as an artist. My favorite moments in the play, in the animation, I'd have to agree too, would be the burning bush scene. Is just such an emotional, captivating piece that really captures the emotional qualities of what it would be to be in front of God. That's something really hard.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hard to captivate. And the music is just so inspiringly amazing, just so epic.
Yeah.
So those are the biggest qualities for me in the musical and the story itself. I mean, I could go on and on, but those are the two things that really stick out to me in that story.
Yeah, I guess that's me next. Yeah, I remember watching this movie religiously, no pun intended, when I was a kid. Like, my all my siblings, my older sister, my twin sister, my younger brother, my parents, we'd watch this movie all the time. Like, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, didn't matter when. It's like, who wants to watch a movie? Let's watch Prince of Egypt. It was just like a given. Like, you didn't even have to ask us. Like, let's just watch Prince of Egypt, and we love that movie. And as I got older, I started to sort of drift away from that movie and sort of forgot about it. And occasionally I'd watch it on TV and be like, wow, this is still really good, really holds up. And it wasn't until this whole experience that I really started to think back on the movie and seeing the play and how disappointing it was. Once, as Shelby said, we'll get into that. But seeing how disappointing the play was made me go back and watch clips and watch the full movie. And I remember actually it was this past Halloween. I was waiting for you guys to get off work so we could enjoy the evening. And I just watched the last 10 minutes from when Moses, from the There Can Be Miracles song to the very end, and I just started authentically weeping.
Yeah.
And I haven't wept like that in a movie in a long time, and I'm just like, wow, I can't believe I forgot about this movie, and I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of cool how you rediscover things as an adult that you didn't think. I mean, they meant a lot to you as a kid, but you kind of dismiss them as an adult. It's like, oh, that was me as a kid. It has nothing to do with me anymore. And you revisit it, and it's like, no, wow, this is like, if I had to make a list of 10 movies that I watched as a kid or growing up to that really made me want to become a filmmaker. It's like, that's definitely in there as one of them. And talk about the faith element. It's just incredibly powerful. And I think even if you aren't a Christian, there's no way you can't get some sort of emotional kick out of this.
Absolutely.
It's incredibly inspiring.
It's
so
very profound.
Very profound.
And I think, I just really quick just wanted to say, I think that's what you're kind of getting at. It's, even as an adult, it's an incredibly profound movie, no matter where you are in the religious spectrum.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that even though the play was disappointing, the fact that I got to revisit this movie and sort of rediscover what it means to me was a really great experience.
Cool.
Gabe, your thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, I 100% grew up on this movie, Prince of Egypt, and it was very inspiring to me. And like you, it kind of dropped out of my life. And it wasn't until my freshman year of college, one of my roommates was super passionate, on fire for Prince of Egypt. Mm-hmm. And so because of his passion, I decided to revisit it. And it's one of those movies that stands the test of time.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this affects me. It doesn't only work as, and this is kind of the stereotype that animated movies get shelved in children's movies,
right?
Which is kind of a false stereotype, because this is one of the movies that proves that animation is a medium that works as four quadrant, as as it works for everybody, and the music is astounding, paired with this really emotional story that you're just wondering when it was going to be turned into a Broadway play. You ask anybody who likes Broadway, and they ask you what kind of properties do you want to be turned into? Do you think should be turned into a Broadway play? And eventually, Prince of Egypt is bound to show up. And so now that it has been turned into a Broadway play, we've waited so long for it to be a play, and it's so disappointing that I could live without it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a great segue into, now that we've all talked about the movie, now it's a great segue to getting into the actual play. So this opened at Theater Works in, was it Silicon Valley?
Silicon Valley, Mountain View.
Mountain View, okay.
Specifically.
So that's where it's as JJ mentioned, plays like The Hunchback of Notre Dame opened there, and that's kind of where they have the test run for whether this play will work on Broadway. Unfortunately, based on what things that JJ has told me, that The Hunchback of Notre Dame was one of those phenomenal plays that
I'm
didn't
dying
get
to see
approved.
it. I have to see it.
Yeah, it's very, very well done.
And
it's very, very well done.
Yeah,
it's a shame that one didn't make it to Broadway.
Yeah, it's a shame. And now we're fearing that this garbage heap of a play will make it to Broadway. I think we should let JJ take the reins on this, since he's the one that was probably the most disappointed walking out of the theater.
You guys walked out.
Yeah, honestly,
straight up.
I almost didn't even want to finish the play. That's how I was angry and upset and almost hurt, because this is such a beloved story to us. You know.
So
and,
JJ, let's start with you. We'll go around, but let's start with you. Lead the conversation.
Well, starting off, going into the theater, wanting this play to succeed to the utmost degree, and sitting down, and I started reading the program, and you read through it, and the director's note, it starts talking about how they wanted to really focus in on Ramses and Moses' character in The Prince of Egypt, which I thought, okay, that's not the main focus of the show, but at least the animation, but I could see where that would be something you could really play on.
Yeah, it's a key part of the musical.
Yeah,
and pause for the. I really wanted to. I thought it would be a really unique way to kind of go off the Prince of Egypt's animation by honing into the characters of Moses and Ramses, as those are strong characters. Maybe not the main part of obviously the story of Exodus and what Prince of Egypt was about, but something I could give them the benefit of the doubt to expand upon. But as the play went on, it kind of changed from this this whole narrative of really just almost going too much into that brotherly connection, and really forgetting what the core of the story of Exodus is about, with in regards to Moses and his relationship to God. The whole story tries to just touch on for a brief moment, just to kind of give it a reference that God is there in the story, but they really paint God as the evil character that kind of was oppressing Moses to do these actions that he does throughout the original story of Prince of Egypt and in Exodus. They paint him as kind of this magical power that had to take over Moses, that he had to do all these evil things and that he had to deal with for the rest of his life. And that the real importance was how that they were delivered from not only Egyptians and from slavery, but also delivered from any connection with this God and from any tradition or any way that almost any cultural stereotypes that you would, aka traditions that you'd have in a culture. So it was this whole kind of modern twist on this politically correct direction that they wanted to take the Prince of Egypt. And they really did well on that aspect of really hitting into a politically correct narrative into a play. But it really doesn't translate well when you're working with a religious story at its core, which is the biblical tradition of Exodus. And that's the way that Prince of Egypt, as the animation took the story, was to really find a consistent ground and elements of the story that had to do with Moses and his relationship with God and the oppression of slavery from the Egyptians, and how God had to deliver the Hebrews from slavery. So it really just took focused too much on a message of deliverance from everything that I guess you could say society considers oppression in any way, shape, or form in a politically correct society as deliverance, instead of the deliverance that the Hebrews were talking about in Prince of Egypt, the animation, and in the Hebrews in Exodus, which was the oppression from the Egyptians to not be able to worship the way that they wanted to not be able to live as free people, and that were completely enslaved by the Egyptians. And that is the core of the story.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's such an amazing, such an amazing story, a timeless story. That is probably one of the most famous stories of Christianity or Judaism. So it really was saddening that they were going to make it more of a political statement and a politically correct play versus really just telling the honest truth about what the core of the story was in the animation and through the Bible. So that's what's really hit me. In addition to that, I would say it also failed on a lot of performing levels of a stage musical as it should have. Anywhere from, I would say some of the character, because they had to really work around God and any elements of religion in the story, it really it really affected the characters and how they flowed throughout the story. It really affected their relationship with each other. It really affected the performance of the actors that were playing these characters. It felt very staged in a lot of elements. As much as a lot of the songs were very impactful and very well done, at the same time, the new music that was put into it, I thought really felt under par compared to what the original music was in the animation. So on many elements, I just felt like the whole flow of the play didn't work very well. It really didn't impact me, even if I was looking at it from purely an outside, not even from a religious standpoint, just as how a play should function and how it should impact an audience in an engaging fashion. It just really didn't hit the elements that it should have. So it fell short on the elements that are really personal to me as far as being a religious content, but also just its historical context that it really didn't hit on at all, and also just from a performance standpoint of how a play should function, especially at a professional level for Broadway, was really kind of a disappointment. So on 3 levels, I would say it was kind of a fail, and I walked out of there very disappointed.
I think disappointment's kind of an understatement.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Atrocity, that's a good
atrocity.
word.
Atrocity.
Oh, yeah. Deliver us, Lord. Whew.
Yeah. I guess I'll.
Well, I mean, I guess now I want to make it let's make it an open mic discussion. So just, I guess I'll start off. But yeah, I mean, JJ basically covered everything. Let's get into the specifics. Yeah, the set design. Well, there was no set design is the problem. You start out, there's this really interesting, non-symmetrical landmass that they've built on top of the stage. And then all of a sudden people start, the extras, I don't know what, the extras or the ensembles, they start being the temples, and they start being the pyramids and the thrones that people sit on, and the chariots, and
they took a simple approach.
They took a simple approach, but it just, I understand, but I don't see, this is the Prince of Egypt. It's
an epic.
It's an epic. There's nothing about that movie that's simple or small. Nothing about it, and it's just
I think in some different timeline, that simple approach could work.
Absolutely,
because the foundation of the play was just so off kilter that.
Well, you could do a way that taking that approach of being really kind of interpretive, if you will, as far as the movement of the ensemble, the movement of the
and
characters.
And for people who aren't musical, just as far, or into musicals and things and plays, it's kind of it's the simple approach, or what we're talking about is abstract, where you're not using huge sets and set pieces to make a landscape or something. You're using actual people, and they're forming, almost acrobatic, where they're forming different things, they're forming a chariot that people sit on, or the people are forming water, and they're doing a interpretive type modern dance to get that across. And so or the
biggest sin this play commits is the burning bush.
Well, here, I just wanted to get that out, so for people listening who aren't super familiar with that kind of art.
Thank you, Shelby.
Continue with JJ what you were saying.
Well, just saying that, like, if you're going to take that approach, I think it could be made epic. They just really were trying to keep it small, which with Prince of Egypt, it's not made to be really a small story. Anything about even the original story, its historical context, nothing about Egypt is small.
Absolutely.
It was
Yeah.
huge. It was large. It was the dominating empire of the world at the time.
Yes.
And Hebrews were an enormous clan of people at that time, and that's why they were threatening to the Egyptians. I mean, there's so much elements of the story that were so big, and Prince of Egypt, the animated film, really captured that.
Yeah.
So there was really no justification for it, other than I don't know what the budget was. I don't know if they had limits.
Yeah.
But even with
Right.
that, I saw a lot of ensemble playing repeated roles. And
Yeah, I saw that too.
I could really see that. And if you're gonna play that, normally you try to be smart so you can almost not recognize that ensemble was this character and was this character.
Yeah, but the cast was so small that you could recognize it.
Mhm.
And like I was going to say, that the burning bush is probably the big like red flag. Is like,
Well,
this is not working. At least for me.
Before we
I
get,
saw that and I was just.
Well, before we get into that, I want to say that there was an ultimate, like, overarching, as JJ said, like, trying to avoid God at all costs. So
Right,
this
right.
story is a biblical story. Let's just at its historical context.
This is
the
an
story
adaptation
of Exodus is in the Bible. I don't know, even if you're not religious, like this was meant to be a recreation of a biblical story. Like that's just
And
what it
people
was
in
at
general
its core.
love Bible stories.
Right, because they're the perennial. They're you can listen to them.
Because there is wisdom
They
in them.
withstand time, like
Yeah.
you know, like Gabe said earlier.
Yeah.
You can watch them as an adult, as a kid. That you can watch them 20 years from now. You know, they're always going to be
Yeah,
relevant.
like the Ten Commandments. There are people today that say like I'm not religious, but the Ten Commandments, like I think that's a great way, like
Well, yeah.
moral blueprint
or
to
even
live your life.
like
So
Buddhism.
it's a great point.
Like they have a very wonderful, like peaceful mantras, or like, you know, I'm using the wrong words, but like
Mhm.
you know, teachings that are everybody can like, no matter where you are, can understand. Yeah, that's a very good moral standing to be in, kind of a
Mhm.
thing. And
Yeah.
so what this musical did that was so frustrating is that if you're gonna take a like the biggest like running joke that we've been saying is like, I don't know how you take the main character out of a story, but they seem to. And I feel like the main character in this story is God, because that is what is fueling everything in this story and with Moses.
So it
And
gives everyone
they
motivation.
completely
Exactly.
took God. Yes. And so that's what JJ was saying. Even just in the motivations, because they were trying not to like just push God out of the story, the motivations of the actors and pretty much all of us here are actors. JJ and I are professionally actors now, but I mean, we've all been involved in musical theaters and had, you know,
We've all acted, yeah.
experience with acting, so we know the objective of an actor, the motivation you have to get to, the why behind your whole overarching objective and what you're going to accomplish as this character. We felt like because the God was taken out of it, it was all, I couldn't tell at all, even just from an actor standpoint, what these characters really wanted. And I think that's just so sad when it comes from a professional, you know, these are professional actors who have been in many things highly acclaimed, and it was a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's most obvious with the burning bush.
Yeah,
because
so now
the
getting
burning-
into the burning bush.
Yeah, so that scene, and that was the thing that I thought, like being a theater geek, I thought, holy crap, this is going to be the most visually pleasing thing in this entire
Absolutely.
play. It's going to like imagine
It's
like
the crux.
It's
It
the
is the
crux.
crux.
Imagine the lighting effects they're going to use, the set they built for this thing. Like, oh my gosh. And it's just a bunch of people stacking up on each other. And they're flailing their arms around like, I am the God of Abraham.
I
honestly-
didn't even know it was the burning bush scene.
Gabe,
This
Gabe
happened.
Gabe, you didn't even know that it was burning bush.
And the thing that really sucks, it's 10 seconds long.
Yeah,
10
absolutely.
seconds for a scene that is pivotal to the entire story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, this is what really sets Moses on his journey to becoming who he's meant to be. Because
and
it's
he understands.
the whole thing is an identity crisis about Moses trying to find who he's meant to be in this world and who he is and where is his home. And God coming to him is like, you know, this is
your
the
purpose.
path this is your purpose.
Absolutely.
Well,
And that scene being blown over like in 10 seconds, it really like is a punch in the face to the movie and to people who are wanting to see such a spectacular visual.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I would say I agree, and I both agree and disagree with that. And this is what I mean is, the way the time allotment that they put for the burning bush scene was where my biggest issue was, and the way that they portrayed, the way that they wanted the emotion to come off of that scene.
Absolutely.
They treated it as almost like a spooky, a spooky ghost kind of scene versus a very spiritual or very spirituality. There was nothing about it that screamed that. It was very like a scary like overtaking of Moses. And at that point too, they also treated it as Moses had no idea who this was.
Absolutely.
And like to a certain degree, like obviously in the story of Exodus and in the movie, he didn't exactly know what was going on, but he did very soon figure out that it was the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, and he knew who that was. And in the play though, he played as if he had never heard of that before at all.
Don't they even like pick him up at one point where?
Yeah, it was
like they're
this,
speaking in voices
and here's
like
the
this,
thing.
and I'm
Here's
the
the thing.
ghost.
That could have been really awesome because in the original Prince of Egypt, they couldn't figure out who to get to play the voice of God because that's so iconic. And so, like as JJ has told us, they used every single person who made the Prince of Egypt. If you go back and watch that scene, that's every single voice of every single person who worked on the production of the Prince of Egypt.
Well, it's their whispers.
Well,
when he's whispering Moses,
right?
Because Val Kilmer is actually the one who's full blown. Like when God is actually speaking.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
that.
well, yes. But that could have been really cool because they used the whole ensemble as this huge burning bush structure. And instead of it being compassionate, like JJ said, or mesmerizing. And I think the biggest thing here is mystical versus magical. I think they really missed the mark on that because God is mystical because he's powerful. He creates miracles. He's not magical. He doesn't have a magic wand like a wizard and he waves his magic wand and he hypnotizes people and possesses them. It's not like that.
And I think we've beaten this part of the play into the ground at this point. Like it's
one more point to finish off the point I started. It wasn't so much in the way that they had performed it. Like I loved the aspect of having all the people and having it as a joint thing because it really gave justice to even like how they had the 900 animators that were a part of the original animated film. I think it really would have given justice. It just was the way that it was performed and the motivations of the actors and how they were performing emotionally and how that the lighting was portrayed. It really gave off the wrong vibe and the wrong thing that they should have been the motivation of that scene. So,
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Gabe, I wanted to ask you. One of the things that we also didn't like about this play was the portrayal of Moses and Ramses. Not just their portrayal, but the relation, the character arcs they go through, and how Moses and Ramses they have these weird on and off things about them being brothers, and even Ramses has these this struggle of like, I want to be my own man. I don't want to have the people of Egypt tell me what to do. I'm sorry, you're Pharaoh. You can do whatever the hell you want. Anyways, I wanted to ask you, like, what were your thoughts on, like, why do you think that didn't work?
The whole storyline between Moses and Ramses is actually like laughable.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think about it and I'm like, this is actually funny. But like JJ was saying, the director really wanted to focus on the relationship between the two brothers, Ramses and Moses. They did it too much to where they actually changed the story, where Moses' motivation is just so warped that his motivation is he always wants to be back with his brother. That's what he's trying to get to, and he feels like this burden. I'm for the Hebrews,
Right.
But he always wants to be back with Ramses.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ramses, so this story point is like from the original movie, where he doesn't want to disappoint his father, and his father calls him, "You don't want to be the weak link in the line of pharaohs." And so he feels like that's a burden. He doesn't want to be the weak link, so he wants to be a strong pharaoh. Mm-hmm. And so Ramses' character arc is at the end of the play. I actually don't know how this connection works because Ramses is like, Moses, we're best friends again. And Ramses is like, Moses, I am the weak link.
Yeah,
that was a pretty.
He like accepts himself as the weak link, and you're like
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like it's a good thing. And Gabe said this earlier because I mean we've discussed this movie or this play.
Oh man.
So I mean we drove 8 hours to get there. That's how much we were like
really quick,
trying to get. But
JJ and Shelby really busted their butts to get us there.
And
so
I even got
hats
a
off
speeding
to
ticket.
those two. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too. It's like
No, but really quick.
we didn't approach this play like we wanted it to succeed.
We did.
There's
Absolutely.
It's just that we're just being honest on how it portrayed us. It's not to hit on anything on theater work. It's not to hit on anything of the creators. You were trying to please an audience, and we're just going to give you a fair assessment of what this
we
was.
paid to get the work that we expected.
Exactly. Yeah, those tickets weren't cheap.
But like I was going back to the other point with Ramses and that story point. Yeah, that dynamic. Gabe made an excellent. He was like, you felt sorry for Ramses and you wanted to root for him. Like he was the hero, not Moses. It's like, what? Because, I mean, Ramses did a lot of really bad things. He was like a really bad guy who was
easy to
controlled by his
sympathize
power.
with him.
Yeah, it was easy to sympathize with him, which was
the main character.
bad.
Well, and you could sympathize with him even in the animated film.
Oh, absolutely.
But you also realized the oppression that the things that he was putting into line were also completely unjust.
Absolutely.
Even though he had perhaps been put in a position where he couldn't help that. But it became such a thing in the play where it was like he was the oppressed one. He was the thing. It was a good thing to become the weak link, which is almost just this thing of like another politically correct aspect of the show.
Be yourself or whatever.
Well, which is
fine in itself. But
in itself, yeah.
I just really feel like what they did was, with the direction, was just this was a perfect case of I want to get my point across. And try to insert it into this play that had no business even doing that.
It's
so
already
it was
well-known property.
their vision did not serve the story.
Sure.
And that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to shove this square peg in this circle hole of I'm going to get my political things across or whatever it was. Whatever it was. I don't even really actually know what the heck it was, but it was not the story of the Prince of Egypt.
It would be interesting.
Go ahead.
It's interesting too if they're taking that route. I think it became such a thing that they want to. It could also be that they want to industrialize this show to hit a more wide audience in this politically correct society. That they're willing to destroy what the original story was in order to, because I mean, religious content in a show is known to not hit certain audiences, but they've had such a large call from a ton of people to do a musical on this film for a long time. I was reading a lot of articles on why they decided to finally do this, because a lot of churches, a lot of synagogues, a lot of theater communities had reached out to DreamWorks asking for the rights to do a show on the Prince of Egypt.
The film.
But they had no rights set up for that play because there was no playwright written. So now that they have this playwright written, and now they're doing this show, I feel like it's to be determined because this was the premiere of the show, but I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of large audiences that agree with us in this, in the aspects that we're talking about, because it really does not acknowledge the religious aspects and the deep-rooted story of Christian theology and Judaism of what their core beliefs are in a story that's really important to them and to their religious beliefs.
Absolutely.
In addition to that,
that's such a good point.
And just even to people who don't even necessarily believe, but find a really inspirational, hopeful story in this that has been such a classic throughout their entire childhood.
Mm-hmm. I want to get back onto the thing with Moses and Ramses real quick, because we talked a lot about Ramses and his stuff, but
yeah,
Moses
we haven't even talked about the main character.
That
should give you like a little clip of how messed up this story is.
So Moses has an interesting banter, and you guys, if I don't mention certain things, you guys can chime in. But the thing that bugged me.
I didn't like Moses, just flat out.
No, yeah,
Gabe
he's
didn't
not
even
a
like
likable
Moses.
character at all. He's kind of a jerk sometimes. I mean,
yeah, car yourself.
yeah, I almost said something else. Kids are watching, I think. Anyways, the one scene that really irked me though was when they had to paint the sheep's blood on the door, and God came down and killed all the firstborns, and Moses is like distraught and devastated, which is accurate to the movie because he is very distraught and devastated in the movie because he hurt his brother. He's basically had to destroy his home, but for what he knows is right. It's a very painful thing for him to do, but he knows that this is what God intended, and this is what it's going to take to set these people free who have been oppressed for years.
Right. The key word in that story point is transformational.
Transformational. But in the play, it's like Moses gives up hope and is like, God, not God, because God's not in this.
Yeah.
Person
Watch
up in
yourself.
the person. Why choose me? Choose someone else. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this is too hard, or this is too difficult for me. And like, yes, that, as I said, that's an important part of the movie, and they portray that so well in like one short 10-second, 15-second scene where he's just stops and like just falls on the ground and starts crying in the movie.
Well, yeah, and that happens with a lot of characters. Like, why do you want me to do this? Like, why am I even here? Why am I doing this? Like, this is, but then.
Even Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, every hero has a doubt before something huge,
But they're always turned back to like they're brought back to like why we're doing this,
right?
like why
and
this
they
is
find
important.
their purpose. They understand it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with this, it was like Moses had to be like literally lifted back up, like he's on the ground, like I don't want to do this
but
anymore.
not by God. He was not lifted up back by
Not by God.
Okay, by his wife or his family, like the people around him, that's okay too. But
basically,
it just completely dismissed God altogether.
And the reason why is because they're basically telling him like, you have the power. This is
Yeah,
your mission.
that was
you
a
can do this.
Big thing. It
Which-
was about Moses like having this magical power that he was granted by this wizard in the sky.
Which then leads to what the second most disappointing thing in this play, the parting of the Red Sea, which is, albeit the most visually
It's the
cool
climax.
thing.
It's the climax
The next
of the
climax.
whole movie.
It's cool the way they do it. They do have a lot of interesting techniques, but basically,
Cool technique, but a high school could have done it.
Exactly. But the thing that
That is such a good
I want to focus on what Moses does specifically. Like, he's like, behold, I don't know what the line is verbatim, but behold my power. He puts his hand in the air, puts his staff in the air, turns around, and then, the waves start turning, and then everybody else sees that and follows suit, and they put their arms in the air.
Yes!
Come on, everybody, let's help Moses part the sea, because we got the magic.
That's a great way to put that. Honestly.
My jaw dropped. I
Yeah.
was like, what am I watching?
No,
What is
really. It
this?
was like, what is this? This is Harry Potter? Like.
Yeah.
No, it was
and the
really
thing that
odd.
Use the Force, Moses.
Yeah, use the Force, Moses. It was like that,
He's
honestly.
pandering to Star Wars audiences, I mean.
No, that's a good point, Vinny. He does say my power, and then it almost felt like all the other people in the ensemble, all the Hebrews, were helping Moses part the Red Sea.
yeah.
That's just a great point, because that's not at all what was going on in the original, and that's not at all what's in the
Yeah, and
story.
it's a very beautiful scene. Like I said, I weep during that scene. In the film. Sorry,
Right.
yeah, and one of the most quotable lines. Yes, thank you. Don't want to be misquoted. One of the most quotable lines from the movie is whenever God comes to Moses and he's like, "Take the staff in your hand, Moses. With this staff, you shall do my wonders." Like, he says that 3 or 4 times throughout the play when he's talking to Moses.
Right.
And that's where the beauty comes in, because like Moses, he surrenders himself to God. He's like, tell me what to do, and he says, you will do my bidding, you'll do my wonders.
My wonders.
And he works through Moses, and he parts the sea, and it's a beautiful moment, and this makes it out to this, like you were saying with the burning bush, it's like this ghost story type vibe to it.
This
it's like,
spookiness.
it's a superstitious, I'm Doctor Strange type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and going off of I think Gabe, you were the one who said something like, he's just not a lovable hero. As far as Moses and the character that plays Moses in this in the stage play. And the thing about Moses that's so intriguing, even from a historical standpoint, is that Moses was even in the Bible as referred to have had a lisp, to have had a speech impediment, even to have had difficulty speaking, and to bring in the character. I mean, it just gives him such, like, even just at its core, like a huge thing for this character to overcome. He was not a likely character, as God throughout all of the Old Testament chose unlikely characters to do his most powerful work.
Absolutely.
And that alone was just a huge thing for this Moses character. The actor they chose, that's an artistic choice, but I would say that just the way it was played was not a strong character to drive this whole story forward.
Yeah.
And even when you get to the Red Sea, it really didn't, that's where everything kind of fell apart, because you set all this stuff up to try to tell the story without the element of God as being the hero in the story. So things start falling apart and it kind of crumbles right at the very end. And that was probably the one thing that one scene had, was the technological side of it. When they did have the parting of the sea, was really a neat scene, how they played it out, even though they played it in the wrong way. I mean, but that should have been the entire show.
Right.
Really taking unique stage technology, stage set pieces, or even just artistic elements that you can tell a story through in a stage performance to really tell the story of Prince of Egypt. And I hope that maybe that was just this performance. They did say that they're hoping to expand on the story and to do it different. It's still in the works, because I hope they're taking audience feedback. I hope that we're going to try to find as many effective ways to let the creators know of how we felt about the show and what things really didn't work for us. Because hopefully, I mean, this show has so much potential.
Yeah,
really
before we start going into like the show overall, I want to just continue on like that technological aspect, because like you said, like it looks like a high school play could have easily done the same thing, and you actually see the actor who played Jethro, like what do you call it? He's like wrestling one of the curtains. That's the waves. You can like clearly see one of those guys in there. It's like, are we serious?
Yeah.
Like I can see Jethro over there. He's not in this scene at all. What's going on?
Yeah.
So, and you bring up a good point, JJ. Like, we don't want to make this as just a way to bash on the play.
No, not at all.
And to like just say like the people who made this are terrible. Everyone's terrible. We don't want that at all. We're actually. I mean, I hope I speak for everybody when I say like I'm grateful that there's even a play in the works, and
Absolutely.
and the fact that I hope they are listening to our critiques during this review, and JJ will be doing a lot more stuff to spread word about this play and what went wrong, and we hope that the creators listen to us, and we hope they take our criticisms and work with them, because I think the best content makers are the ones that can take criticisms and decide, determine like, okay, what can we do better? What can we ignore?
Yeah.
I hope they'll listen to us. I hope we're right. I mean,
Right.
at least from the religious aspect and taking away from that, I hope that we were right, because they went to so many different religious leaders and experts to make the movie accurate and respectful. That's why it's so great and why people love it so much, because like
I think it's why it was very successful.
It was successful because it respects the religious aspects on so many different levels, not just on a Christian level, but the Hebrews and Judaism, and it's
they approached the movie with respect, and the audience respected it because of that.
Right.
Yeah, whereas this play, it really just tries to do something that it tries some
religion aspect.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just really, it was just, I think the biggest thing is missed opportunity.
Exactly.
Huge missed opportunity, which is just so sad, because like Gabe said from the very beginning, like so many different people have been waiting for this to be a musical, or for this to be on the stage, and now that it actually is, it just wasn't. That's the biggest thing. It wasn't respectful. I felt not respected as a, especially as a Christian, because this is our,
It's our Super Bowl.
this is our, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, the Bible is a very important to Christianity, and to completely dismiss the main character from the story is pretty disappointing.
And I think we should clarify really quick, because I think some people will get confused. Like, yes, Moses is the main character; he's the one we're following. But
Right, of course.
at the end of the day, God,
This is a central character.
God is the
He's the
central
central
character. He
character.
works through everybody and everything. He creates everyone and everything,
Right.
and he is working through Moses.
And the biggest
whether
thing
you
is,
believe it or not, the belief in that movie is that he is working through Moses to
Exactly.
accomplish wonders.
no, and that's the biggest thing, is even if you aren't religious, like, even if you don't believe that there's a God, like, this was a story that was, this was already a story in the Bible that somebody was bringing to the screen. So it's not like it was, there's really no room for argument. Like, no, God was never in the story. Like, that wasn't a thing. Like, God is in the story.
most
If
popular book
you
in the
believe in
Bible.
God or not, that's the whole point. And the point was recreating a story that already had God in it, and they tried to recreate that story with God without him.
Yeah.
So it was
Which
just
is,
interesting, very interesting.
Interesting, but it doesn't work. It's like saying you're going to make a Captain America movie, not have Captain America in it.
It's that kind of concept.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the saddest thing is that it just wasn't compelling or interesting, and frankly, it was boring.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They didn't even make a good show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
what
kind of
we're
what it comes
saying.
down to. They didn't make a good show. And I remember you and I, when they finished Act 1, I turned to Gabe and was like, that's not bad, but it's
We saw potential in it.
not particularly good.
I did too. I was hopeful. I was
Yeah.
very hopeful.
Some of us didn't really. Some of us saw the red flags
I was
before
turned
us.
off early on, just because, like, I don't know why. It just from the very top, I could see there was something just off in their narrative and how they performed, even the first number, and how they performed the song and why and how, and it just, it was a disappointment. But I hope that it moves on. I hope that there's adjustments made, and I hope that they work towards some of the things, bringing back some of the religious aspects and the historical aspects of Exodus, and putting God back as a central character that's not such an evil aspect of the show.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. That's the main thing.
That theme, the theme song when God is in the form of the burning bush, like that's one of the most beautiful musical compositions ever made.
I
And
would agree.
the fact that they replaced it
sets
with
the
this
tone.
spooky, scary
Yeah.
music was really kind of a bummer.
It was a bummer.
'Cause-
It's just that's really the biggest thing for us. Like, I think we're just all really just really bummed out.
Really disappointed.
Because
As big fans, as lifelong fans of this incredible movie, this incredible story,
Yeah.
we are disappointed.
Absolutely.
And once again, we hope. Actually, before we get into all that, let's just go around the room and just start sharing our like 2-minute recap thoughts on the musical, starting with Shelby.
So I'll just quickly say, like, just with the point that we just were talking about how we were hopeful in the first act, I will say positive things. There were some awesome theatrical songs that really, the iconic songs that they did choose to keep in this musical were really cool. And I thought that they were like, oh yeah, this is like the movie, this is like that feeling. There were very few songs that did that for me, and there was one new song in particular that I did like, but that was pretty much it out of all of the new songs that they added. They felt like if you took those out, the story would be fine without them. And I feel like in a musical, people are singing because they absolutely have to. It's important, and I felt like a lot of the songs weren't important. But anyways, so I guess I would just say overall, I've probably said this about 5 times in this podcast, but it's just so hurtful to me that they just completely, took the central character, which is God, they took God out of the Bible. That's like really, I don't know how you do
insulting.
that. It is insulting, like I was saying, as a Christian. Like, if I was doing a film on, another religious leader for another religious group, I would try to be as respectful as possible to that. And I felt like it was just a huge disappointment and missed opportunity, because I have such an affection to this movie. So
Score out of 10?
yeah, score out of 10. Out of 10.
Yeah.
We say it's bad.
Yeah. Can we just say I don't
Sure,
know?
you can just say it's bad.
Because I would have to do it on like technical level.
It's easy to pinpoint like positive things, but those positive things don't explain just the very negative foundation.
That's kind of what I was saying with
like
my overall
nuggets.
note.
Mhm.
It's like finding little nuggets of gold in a coal mine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there were some really good elements of this. Like, a lot of the actors and the voices really impressed me, but then, there was some, like, motivation problems as an actor, and I just didn't believe a lot of the characters. So, if we were going to do it out of 10, I would have to say, okay, here's my technical score out of 10. Here's my acting score out of 10. Here's my story score out of 10. I'd have to do it like that. So overall, I was disappointed. I'll just say that.
Fair enough. JJ?
Well, I'd say I approached the play as knowing that it wasn't going to be the animated film. And I approached the play expecting it to reach expectations of what a professional musical show could reach, in a different aspect, approaching it in a different way from an artistic standpoint. And it failed on the note of it being it failed on the aspect of it being a musical show about that original story of Prince of Egypt. So it was disappointing on many levels, from a story aspect, character aspect, musical aspect, and as an overall performance of a musical show aspect. I'd say it failed on pretty much every level it could have. There are good elements in there, not denying that, but for the most part, I would say it was a huge disappointment. And I can't give it, same thing, I can't give it a something out of 10, but I would just say it was a disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, you guys sort of said disappointment, but it's, like I said, I'm grateful for this opportunity to really hone in on why I loved it as a kid and why I still love it today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, it's been a great discovery of that, rediscovering of that. But this play is just downright bad. It didn't succeed on the level it should have. The fact is, there are people who know this story so well and know its source material so well that there is a innate expectation. And same goes for, like, imagine the 10 Commandments, like debatably the greatest Bible movie of all time. Imagine that movie without God. And, that one takes a little more of a epic in a different sense than Prince of Egypt. Like, that one's very grand and, trumpets blowing. This one's very majestic and beautiful and moving. But they still have God as a central character because he is the central character. And taking him out, just removed the play of any real motivation, of any real heart, of any real sense of morals, really. I mean, it didn't feel like the story I grew up on, that my siblings grew up on, that my family grew up on. And on that end, it's really disappointing to see something you really love being treated this way. Mm-hmm. And my hope is that the creators of the Prince of Egypt musical, that they hear our concerns, they understand that we love this story, love this movie, and that we only want to see them succeed and the play succeed as well.
Absolutely.
So,
would you give it a score out of 10?
I guess that was kind of an unfair question to ask you guys because I don't even know my score out of 10. Yeah. But I mean, I guess just shot in the dark, it'd definitely be below 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's just not a good play. I've tried to see through, like, the people building up I don't know what you call it nowadays, but just the people doing these abstract dances and the burning bush. It just really didn't work for me, and it was really distracting at times. So, yeah, I hope you guys hear us out. Gabe?
Close us up, Gabe.
The reason the Prince of Egypt, this play, didn't succeed is because it's not the Prince of Egypt. There were so many story points that were warped and changed that it's not even the original property. It's not even the original Bible story.
Absolutely. Great point.
So much to the fact that the original songs they used from the movie didn't emotionally satisfy me because they didn't work in the context of the story. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like, there are songs explaining characters' motivations, but it wasn't the motivations that were set up in the play. So it was controversial, the songs and what the play was setting up. And so inevitably, there are going to be a large amount of audiences that share the same thoughts as we do. So hopefully there will be enough people who share the same opinions as us that there will be some force that'll change the creators of this play to actually respect the source material.
Well said. Well, that was our review and discussion of the Prince of Egypt musical. We want to know your guys' thoughts, comments, if you saw the play, if you agree with us, if you disagree with us. If you haven't seen it and you're concerned about other things that we didn't talk about, please let us know in the comments down below. We'll try to get back to you on those things. And yeah, thank you guys for watching this episode of the Vince Salerno podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button down below and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can check out my short films, trailer reactions, and more episodes of the Vince Salerno podcast. I just recently started a new show called Movie Figure Reviews, where I take my movie figures and I review them on a more micro level in regards to how they look compared to their actor-character counterpart, rather than how they are as like basic action figures, trying to do something a little different. So please check that out. New episode will be coming up later this November. I want to thank my special guests here. First off, Shelby Turner, regular as always. Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah, thank you, Vinny.
Where can the people
This is
find you?
awesome. So I, again, as my last podcast, I said I'm working on my social media. I'm still working on my social media, but you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, but there's not much there.
And
but
Twitter.
There will be something, and Twitter.
You are on Twitter. I saw.
So, yes. And YouTube, if you want. But
Cool. JJ Schindler, the man who put this journey to hell for us together. No, I'm just kidding. This Ragnarok of an adventure together. JJ, where can the people find you online?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Facebook, just JJ Schindler 33. Instagram, JJ Schindler, or on Twitter at JJ Schindler _Schindler. I'm all over. Google me. It's pretty easy. If you can't find me, well, that's your fault, but look me up.
Would you like to plug your upcoming endeavor, the Yellow Rose?
Look for anything with Yellow Rose Productions. That's anything that's come up that I've produced. Some of the stuff I may have acted in. Hint, hint. So a lot of stuff coming out. I got a lot of new short films, a lot of new commercials, a lot of new stuff. So follow me on my social medias, and you'll see where all that stuff's coming out.
Definitely. And Gabe Moore.
Yeah.
Second time being on here. You're no longer the baby of the group.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
I wish it was under better circumstances.
I wish you. I mean, since we're roommates, you'll definitely be on the show again soon. So,
you can
where can people find you online?
Find me on Facebook, Instagram. Tweet me at OpenlyGabe.
Oh, wait, that's it?
That's it.
Okay. As always, guys, you can follow me on all my various social media platforms, but mostly on Instagram at thebaby75_Vince. And, well, the rest will be down below because I can do that because I have that type of power. Because this is my podcast, the Vince Salerno podcast.
Diva.
Hashtag diva. Not. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. God bless and peace out.